It was a calm afternoon in early spring, the kind that makes a person feel like everything is right in the world. The sky was a soft blue with a few lazy clouds floating above the rooftops. A gentle breeze carried the smell of fresh-cut grass and blooming flowers through the neighborhood. On that day, 17-year-old Malik Johnson was just walking home from basketball practice, his gym bag slung over one shoulder, his earbuds playing a quiet beat. He had just finished a long week of school and was looking forward to a quiet evening. His mother was working late again, which wasn't unusual. She worked for the FBI, and while he didn't always understand what she did, he was proud of her. People often said she was tough and smart, but to Malik, she was just Mom. She reminded him to eat breakfast, pushed him to study harder, and gave him the same warning every time he left the house. Keep your head up. Be respectful. Come home safe. Malik took those words seriously. He was used to being careful, used to making sure he didn't draw too much attention. His mother's job had made him more aware than most kids his age about how quickly things could go wrong. Still, today felt peaceful. He had played well at practice, scored a few good shots, and even his coach had said he looked ready for next week's game. He stopped by the small convenience store on the corner, the one where the owner always greeted him with a nod. Malik pulled out a few dollars from his pocket and grabbed a cold drink. He liked this part of the day, the walk home, the music, the quiet. The sun was still high and everything seemed normal. As he stepped out of the store, he noticed a police car parked on the opposite side of the street. He didn't think much of it. They were often around the area, sometimes helping direct traffic or responding to minor calls. Malik took a sip of his drink and started walking again. But after a minute, he noticed the patrol car moving slowly behind him. He turned down a quieter street, the same one he always took home, and heard the tires roll over the pavement behind him. The sound of the car door opening made him pause. He looked back. 2 officers had stepped out, one older, one younger. The older officer called out, "Hey, hold up a second." Malik took a breath and stopped walking. His heart started beating a little faster, but he remembered what his mother always told him. He took out one earbud so he could hear clearly. "Yeah?" he said politely. The younger officer walked closer, eyes scanning Malik's clothes and bag. "Where are you coming from?" he asked. "Basketball practice," Malik replied. "At the high school." The older officer crossed his arms. "We got a report of someone matching your description around here. Mind telling us what's in the bag?" Malik frowned slightly, unsure what to say. "Just my basketball stuff," he answered. "You can check if you want." He placed the bag on the ground slowly, his hands visible. He had seen enough news stories to know how careful he needed to be. His voice stayed calm, but his stomach was tight. People were watching now. A woman across the street stopped watering her plants. A man on a porch leaned forward, curious. The older officer glanced at the younger one, then nodded. "Go ahead and open it." Malik crouched down, unzipped the bag, and showed them a pair of sneakers, a towel, and a water bottle. "That's it," he said quietly. The younger officer didn't say anything for a moment. He just stared at Malik like he was trying to decide something. Then he asked, "You live around here?" Malik nodded. "A few blocks away. Can we see some ID?" Malik reached slowly for his wallet. "Sure," he said, his voice careful. "It's in my pocket." The older officer's tone sharpened suddenly. "Just keep your hands where I can see them." Malik froze. He felt the weight of everyone's eyes on him. The woman across the street had stopped completely, her phone now in her hand. Malik slowly raised his hands a little, unsure of what to do next. "It's just in my pocket," he said softly. "You asked for ID." The younger officer nodded, looking uncomfortable. "It's fine, go ahead," he said. Malik moved slowly, pulled out his wallet, and handed over his school ID. The older officer took it, studied it for a few seconds, then looked back at Malik. "You sure you weren't near Oak Street earlier?" Malik shook his head. "No, sir. I came straight from school." The younger officer looked down at his notepad, scribbling something. Malik stood still, his hands at his sides, his mouth dry. The street felt too quiet now. Even the breeze had stopped. His drink sat forgotten on the curb, condensation running down the bottle. Minutes passed like hours. The older officer spoke into his radio, giving Malik's name. Malik could hear every word, his chest tight. He hadn't done anything wrong, but he still felt like something could go wrong any second. His heart was pounding so loud he could hear it. The younger officer looked at him again. "You nervous for some reason?" Malik forced a small smile. Wouldn't you be? He asked softly. That question hung in the air. The younger officer looked away. Malik's phone buzzed in his pocket, probably his mom checking in as she always did around this time. He wanted to reach for it but didn't dare move. Finally, the radio crackled and the older officer relaxed slightly. All right, he said, handing back the ID. You can go. Just make sure you head straight home. Malik nodded and took the card. Yes, sir. He picked up his bag and his drink, his hands still trembling. As he started walking again, he could feel the eyes still following him. The patrol car stayed parked for another minute before slowly driving off. Malik walked faster now. His throat was tight and he didn't know if he wanted to scream or cry. He knew he hadn't done anything wrong, but that didn't matter. It never did in moments like that. By the time he reached his street, his phone buzzed again. This time he pulled it out. It was a text from his mom. On my way home. Want me to grab dinner? He stared at the screen for a few seconds before typing back. Yeah, sure. Anything's fine. He didn't tell her what happened, not yet. He didn't want her to worry, and he didn't want to see the look on her face when she realized how close things had come. As he walked up the front steps, he took a deep breath and tried to shake off the fear. He told himself it was over, but deep down he knew it wasn't. Something about the way the older officer looked at him like he was a problem waiting to happen, stuck in his mind. Inside the house, everything was quiet. Malik dropped his bag by the door and went to his room. He looked in the mirror and saw his own face, sweaty, tired, and a little scared. He didn't like that feeling. He had done everything right. He had followed every rule, every lesson his mother had ever taught him, and still it had almost gone wrong. He turned off the music still playing in one earbud and sat on the edge of his bed. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance, faint but sharp. He thought about how easily things could have been different. What if he had said the wrong thing? What if he had reached for his wallet too fast? Malik rubbed his face and tried to calm down. He knew his mother would come home soon, smiling, tired, ready to tell him about her day. He didn't want to ruin that. He wanted the evening to feel normal again, but deep down he also knew she would notice. She always did. She would see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands still shook a little, and when she asked what happened, he wasn't sure if he'd be able to keep the truth to himself. Outside his window, the last bit of sunlight faded, leaving the street in a soft orange glow. Kids' laughter echoed somewhere nearby. The world kept going, pretending nothing had happened. But for Malik, something had shifted. A small invisible crack had opened in the way he saw his neighborhood, his safety, and even himself. And though he didn't know it yet, that moment, that quiet, ordinary walk home was about to change everything. The next morning started quietly. The house smelled like coffee, and soft sunlight slipped through the blinds. Malik sat at the kitchen table, stirring his cereal, his thoughts miles away. He hadn't slept much the night before. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashing lights, the officer's hard stare and his own hands trembling in front of him. His mother, Denise, stood by the counter, dressed in her work clothes, dark jacket, badge clipped to her belt. She looked tired, but there was a calm strength in her voice as she said, "You're quiet today." Malik forced a small smile. "Just tired." She watched him for a moment, studying his face. Years in law enforcement had taught her to notice small things, a twitch, a change in tone, a shift in body language. Her son was hiding something. "Did something happen yesterday?" she asked carefully. He hesitated. "Not really. Just a long day." She didn't press him. Denise believed in giving her son space, but something about his eyes made her uneasy. She reached over, touched his hand gently, and said, "Remember, if anything ever happens, you tell me, okay? No matter what it is." He nodded, but the look in his eyes said he wasn't ready. She gave him a reassuring smile, then grabbed her keys. "All right, I'll be late again tonight." "Big case meeting. You good to handle dinner?" "Yes, I got it." She kissed the top of his head and left for work. The door closed and Malik sat there a few minutes longer, staring into his cereal bowl until it went soggy. He knew he should tell her what happened. She worked with law enforcement. She could do something. But the thought of seeing her angry or worried made him feel worse. So he stayed quiet. At school, things felt normal at first. His friends joked about basketball practice and his teacher praised his essay from last week. But Malik couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were on him. Not the friendly kind, but the sharp, watchful kind he'd felt from the police the night before. During lunch, He sat with his best friend, Aaron. After a while, Malik finally told him what happened. Aaron's fork froze midair. They stopped you? For what? They said I matched a description. Aaron frowned. Of what, a kid walking home? Malik shrugged. Guess so. Aaron shook his head. Man, that's messed up. Did your mom find out? No, I didn't tell her. Aaron gave him a long look. You should. My cousin had something like that happen, and his mom went down to the station. They backed off real quick after that. Malik sighed. Yeah, maybe. The rest of the day dragged on. Every time a police car passed by outside the school gates, Malik's chest tightened a little. He told himself it was just his imagination, that everything was fine now, but deep down he didn't believe it. When school ended, he walked home the same way as before, headphones in, trying to calm his mind. The streets were quiet, but when he reached the corner near the small grocery store, a familiar sight made him freeze. The same patrol car from yesterday was parked there. His heart skipped. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe they were just on patrol. He told himself to stay calm. He wasn't doing anything wrong, but as he crossed the street, the driver's door opened. The same older officer stepped out. Malik's stomach dropped. Hey, the officer called out. You again? Malik turned slowly. Yeah, he said, keeping his voice even. Just going home. The officer walked closer, his hand resting near his belt. We got a call again about someone in a dark hoodie looking around houses. Malik blinked. I just got out of school. The officer's tone turned sharp. I didn't ask for excuses. Malik felt heat rise in his chest. He wanted to say something to tell him to stop, but the words stuck. He remembered his mother's voice. Stay calm. Be respectful. Don't argue. So he nodded slowly. I understand. Where's your ID? Malik reached for his pocket again, careful and slow. He handed over the same school card. The officer stared at it, then at Malik's face, as if trying to find a reason to keep pushing. From across the street, a few people were watching. One man had his phone out. Malik noticed and felt a strange mix of fear and relief. Maybe someone filming would keep things from going bad. The younger officer appeared this time too, walking around the car. His voice was softer. He's the same kid from yesterday, right? The older officer didn't answer right away. Could be, he said finally. Still might be worth checking again. Malik could feel the frustration building in his chest. Sir, I didn't do anything. I just want to go home. The older officer gave a cold smile. Then you got nothing to worry about, do you? Malik looked at the ground, gripping his bag tightly. He could feel the situation shifting again, the same uneasy tension from before. The younger officer shifted uncomfortably but didn't step in. A car turned the corner then, slowing down as it approached. Malik didn't notice at first, but inside that car was Denise, heading home early for once. She had just finished a meeting and decided to surprise her son with takeout. From a distance, she saw her boy standing on the side of the road, his backpack on the ground, 2 police officers in front of him. Her heart dropped. She didn't think, she reacted. Her car came to a stop and she was out in seconds. She called out, voice sharp and clear. What's going on here? The officers turned, startled. Malik looked up and felt both relief and fear at the same time. Mom, he said, his voice shaky. Denise's eyes went straight to her son, scanning him quickly for any sign of harm. Then she looked at the officers, her jaw tight. That's my son, she said firmly. What are you doing with him? The older officer straightened. Ma'am, step back. This doesn't concern you. Denise's badge was out before he could finish the sentence. It does when you're questioning my son without cause, she said. FBI Special Agent Johnson. The silence that followed was heavy. The younger officer's eyes went wide. The older one's face turned pale. For a moment, no one spoke. Denise stepped closer, her tone calm but fierce. You stopped him yesterday, didn't you? And now again today, why? The older officer stammered. We had a call about a suspect. Matching what description? She cut in. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. He didn't have an answer that would sound right. The tension hung thick in the air. Denise's eyes didn't leave his. If you're accusing him of something, you can do it properly. Otherwise, you're detaining a minor without cause. And I know exactly what that means legally. The younger officer looked like he wanted to melt into the pavement. Ma'am, it's okay, he said quickly. It's a misunderstanding. Denise didn't respond. She turned to Malik. Get in the car. He grabbed his bag and obeyed, his hand still shaking. Denise waited until he was safely inside before facing the officers again. Her voice stayed steady, but there was steel in it. "You both should review your department's procedure manual tonight," she said. "And check your body cam footage, I will be." Neither of them replied. The older officer nodded stiffly, avoiding her eyes. Denise turned and got back into her car. Malik sat silent beside her, eyes on his lap. For a few minutes they drove in silence. Then Denise spoke softly, more to herself than to him. "They pulled you over yesterday too, didn't they?" He nodded, guilt creeping in. "Yeah." She gripped the steering wheel tighter. "You should have told me." "I didn't want to make you mad." Her voice softened. "Mad? No, scared." "Yes." She took a slow breath. "You did everything right, Malik. You stayed calm. I'm proud of you." He looked at her, surprised. "Even though I didn't tell you?" She smiled faintly. "You're safe now. That's what matters." When they got home, Malik went straight to his room and sat on the bed, trying to process everything. His mother was in the living room, on her phone, making quiet calls. To her office, to the police department, to people she knew could make sure what happened wouldn't disappear into silence. For Malik, the fear was still there, but it was mixed with something else now, a strange kind of pride. Seeing his mother step in like that, strong and unshaken, made him feel protected in a way he hadn't before, but it also made him realize something deeper, how close things had come, and how easily they could have ended differently. That night, he lay in bed listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the soft ticking of the clock, and the faint sound of his mother's voice in the next room. He didn't catch every word, but he heard enough to know she was fighting for him, even after the moment had passed. And though part of him wanted to forget the whole thing, another part knew this wasn't over. Something had changed, not just for him but for her too. The line between her work and her life had blurred, and now it was personal. Malik closed his eyes, hoping tomorrow would be easier. But deep down he knew the world didn't change that fast. The next day started slow. The morning air was cool, and the sun took its time climbing over the rooftops. Malik sat on the porch, his backpack beside him, watching cars roll down the quiet street. His mother had already left for work, but before she did, she made sure to hug him tight, something she hadn't done in a while. He could still hear her words from that morning echoing in his head. "Keep your phone on you. And remember, I'm always just a call away." He nodded then, but now he wished she didn't have to worry so much. All he wanted was to go to school like anyone else, to walk home without feeling a shadow following him. When he got to school, things seemed normal again. Kids were laughing in the halls, teachers calling out morning greetings, and the smell of breakfast burritos drifted from the cafeteria. But even with all that noise, Malik still felt a strange quiet inside him. Aaron met him at his locker. "Hey, you good?" Malik gave a small shrug. "Yeah, my mom showed up yesterday." Aaron's eyes widened. "No way, like showed up? "Yeah," Malik said, trying not to smile at the memory. "You should have seen their faces. They froze the second she flashed her badge." Aaron laughed softly. "Man, I wish I'd seen that." Then his tone turned serious. "She gonna do something about it?" "I think so," Malik said. "She made some calls last night." Aaron nodded slowly. "Good. People need to see what really happens." The bell rang, cutting their talk short. Classes went by in a blur. Malik tried to focus on his assignments, but his mind kept drifting back to yesterday. His mom's steady voice, the way the officers went from bold to quiet in a second. He felt proud of her, but also uneasy. She was tough, but even she couldn't protect him from everything. By the time school ended, the weather had shifted. Gray clouds gathered overhead, and the air smelled like rain. Malik walked home quickly, keeping his hood up. Every car that passed made him tense a little. He told himself it was nothing, but the feeling wouldn't leave. When he turned onto his street, he spotted a different car parked near the corner. A dark SUV he didn't recognize. For a moment, he thought it might be the same officers again. But when the window rolled down, he saw a familiar face. It was one of his mother's co-workers, Agent Ruiz. She smiled faintly and waved him over. "Hey there, Malik," she said. "Your mom asked me to keep an eye on the house for a few days." "Just in case," Malik blinked. "In case of what?" She hesitated. "Let's just say she wants to make sure no one bothers you again." He didn't know what to say. Part of him was grateful. The other part felt exposed, like everyone knew something he didn't. "Okay," he said quietly. "Thanks," she nodded. No problem. Go on inside, it's about to pour. He walked up the driveway, unlocked the front door, and dropped his bag on the floor. Thunder rumbled in the distance. He turned on some music to fill the silence and tried to focus on homework. But his thoughts kept wandering. Across town, his mother was in a conference room at the FBI field office. Her face calm but her hands folded tightly on the table. Two senior officers from the local police department sat across from her, along with her supervisor. The air was tense but polite. Denise spoke first. "I'm not here to start a fight," she said evenly. "But I want accountability. My son was stopped twice in 2 days, both times with no reasonable cause." The older police captain cleared his throat. "Agent Johnson, we're reviewing the reports. The officers believed they had probable cause based on a call description." She met his eyes. "Then your department needs better training on what that means. Because if my son hadn't handled himself calmly, that situation could have gone very wrong." The room fell silent. Her supervisor finally spoke. "We'll make sure it's reviewed. Internal Affairs will handle it properly." Denise gave a short nod. "Good. I'll be following up." When she left the building, the air outside felt heavy like the storm waiting to break. She sat in her car for a long time, hands gripping the wheel. Her mind ran through all the years she'd spent in the field, arrests, interrogations, briefings, but nothing compared to what she'd felt seeing her son face those officers. For the first time in her career, she'd been on the other side. She started the engine and headed home. By the time she pulled into the driveway, the rain had begun, falling in steady sheets. Malik was standing at the window, watching the storm. When he saw her car lights, he hurried to the door. "Hey, Mom," he said, relief in his voice. "Hey, kiddo," she said with a tired smile. "You okay?" "Yeah, one of your coworkers was here earlier." She nodded. "Ruiz, I asked her to check in." Malik looked at her closely. "You talked to the police, didn't you?" "I did," she said simply. "What did they say?" "That they'll look into it." Her tone made it clear she didn't fully believe that would happen. He frowned. "So nothing's going to change?" Denise looked at him for a long moment. "Maybe not right away, but that doesn't mean we stop pushing." They sat down for dinner, takeout again, and ate quietly for a while. The sound of rain filled the gaps between their words. Finally, Malik said, "I don't get it. You work with cops all the time. Why do they act like that?" She set her fork down. "Because some people see what they expect to see," she said softly. "Not who's really in front of them." He looked down at his plate. "So what do we do?" She gave a small, tired smile. "We keep living. We keep proving them wrong." After dinner, Malik went to his room. He pulled out his phone and opened social media. To his surprise, there was a video trending, footage from yesterday, the moment his mother arrived. Someone in the neighborhood had recorded the whole thing. The caption read, "FBI agent confronts cops who targeted her son." Malik's hands went cold as he watched. The video had thousands of views and hundreds of comments. Some people were angry, others were supportive, and a few didn't believe it was real. He scrolled through them, his emotions a mix of pride and confusion. He hadn't asked for attention, but now his life was part of a story being shared everywhere. A knock on his door made him jump. Denise stepped in, holding her phone. "You've seen it?" she asked. He nodded. "Yeah." She sighed and sat beside him on the bed. "It's out there now. There's going to be noise for a while. Reporters might call. Don't talk to anyone, okay? Let me handle it." He nodded again, unsure what to say. She put an arm around his shoulder. "I know this is a lot, but maybe it'll help people see what really happens. Maybe something good can come from it." Malik leaned against her. "I hope so." Later that night, as the rain softened to a drizzle, Denise stood by the living room window watching the street. She could see the reflection of blue lights in her memory, flashing like ghosts in the dark. She thought about the faces of those officers, about her son's quiet fear, and about all the parents who never got to pull up in time. She whispered to herself, "Not my son. Not ever again." In his room, Malik lay awake, the glow of his phone lighting his face. Messages kept coming in. Friends from school, distant relatives, even strangers thanking him for staying calm, for speaking up. But he didn't feel like a hero. He just felt tired. He turned off the screen and stared at the ceiling. The sound of rain tapping on the window was soft, steady, almost peaceful now. He thought about what his mother said, about living, about proving people wrong. He didn't know how to change the world, but maybe he could start by telling his story. Before falling asleep, he opened a blank page on his phone and typed a few words. Yesterday I learned what fear looks like. But I also learned what strength looks like, and she drives a black sedan with an FBI badge. He smiled faintly, then closed his eyes. The storm outside had passed, but something bigger was just beginning. The sun rose slowly after a long night of rain. The streets were damp and shining, reflecting pale light from the morning sky. Malik stood in front of the bathroom mirror, brushing his teeth, staring at his reflection without really seeing it. His phone buzzed again and again from the counter. He didn't even have to look to know what it was. More notifications, more messages, more comments. The video of his mother confronting the officers had gone everywhere. It wasn't just local news anymore. It had been shared across social media, talked about on morning shows, and written up on blogs. People were arguing in the comments, some calling his mother a hero, others saying she had overreacted. Malik didn't know what to think. Downstairs, the smell of coffee filled the air. Denise sat at the kitchen table, her laptop open, a stack of printed reports beside her. She looked composed, but there were dark circles under her eyes. She had been up late responding to calls, writing statements, and speaking with both her supervisors and the police department. When Malik came downstairs, she looked up and tried to smile. "Morning, morning," he said quietly. "Eat something," she said. "You've got a long day ahead." He poured himself a bowl of cereal but didn't touch it. The kitchen felt too quiet. He could feel the tension even when she didn't speak. "Mom," he said after a while, "people keep messaging me. Reporters too." "I know," she said, not looking up. "Don't answer anyone. I'll handle it." He nodded, but it still felt strange. The whole world was talking about what happened to him, and he wasn't supposed to say a word. Denise closed her laptop and looked at him carefully. "You okay?" Malik hesitated. "I guess. Just weird, you know? Everyone's watching us now." She sighed softly. "Yeah, I didn't plan for that. But sometimes the truth spreads whether we want it to or not." He gave a small nod, then asked quietly, "Did the police say anything?" Her expression changed slightly, the kind of look that meant she was holding back anger. "They called it a misunderstanding. They said the officers acted in good faith." "That's it?" Malik asked. "That's it," she said flatly. "But we're not done yet. I've already filed a formal complaint. It won't disappear this time." The day stretched on slowly. Malik tried to go about his routine, but even at school he felt eyes on him. Some classmates congratulated him. Others whispered when he passed. One teacher even asked if she could use his story for a class discussion on fairness. He didn't like any of it. He just wanted things to go back to normal. When he got home that afternoon, there were 2 cars parked outside, the same SUV from the day before and another unmarked vehicle. His stomach sank a little. Inside, he found his mother sitting with 2 visitors, a woman from the local news and another man wearing a suit. Denise looked calm but serious. "It's okay, Malik," she said. "They just want to talk. You don't have to say anything." The reporter smiled politely. "Hi, Malik. I just wanted to ask how you're doing after everything that's happened." Malik glanced at his mother, unsure. "I'm okay, I guess," he said quietly. "That video's been seen by millions of people," the woman said gently. "Your mom's actions really resonated with people. Do you know how that feels?" He shifted in his seat. "It's strange. I didn't mean for any of it to happen. I was just walking home." The reporter nodded sympathetically. Sometimes moments like this help people understand things they didn't see before. Denise interrupted softly. "That's enough for today." The interview ended quickly after that. Malik felt drained. As soon as the visitors left, he turned to his mother. "I don't want to do more interviews." "I don't like talking about it," she nodded. "You don't have to. Nobody's forcing you." He hesitated. "Do you think people will forget about it soon?" Her expression softened. "Maybe. But maybe they'll remember too. And maybe that's not a bad thing." That evening, they sat together in the living room. The TV played a quiet news segment about the growing attention on police behavior in their city. Denise turned down the volume when she saw their faces on the screen. Malik leaned back on the couch, staring at the muted images. "It's weird seeing us on TV." "I know," she said. "But it's out of our hands now." He turned to her. "You don't regret what you did, right?" "Not for a second," she said firmly. "If I had been 1 minute later, Things could have gone differently. You did everything right. I'm the one who needed to show up. Malik looked down at his hands. I just wish it never happened. I know, she said softly. Me too. For a moment, they sat in silence, the kind that's both heavy and comforting. Then she reached over and put her hand over his. You're strong, you know that? He didn't answer, but he gave a small smile. Outside, the streetlights flickered on one by one. The neighborhood looked calm again, but it didn't feel the same. A few cars slowed when they passed their house, maybe recognizing it from the video. Malik noticed and pulled the curtain closed. Later that night, Denise got a phone call. Malik could hear her talking in the kitchen, her voice low but firm. When she came back into the living room, he asked, Was that about the case? Yes, she said. They're opening an investigation. The department said they'll review the footage from the officers' body cameras. So they might actually do something? She nodded slowly. Maybe. It's a start. The next day, Denise was called to a community meeting organized by the city council. They wanted to discuss police conduct and community trust. She didn't plan to speak, but when the time came, the audience insisted she say something. Malik sat in the back of the crowded gymnasium, watching as his mother stepped up to the microphone. She looked calm, but he could tell she was nervous. I didn't plan to become part of this conversation, she began, but I'm here because I saw something no parent should see. My son was treated like a suspect, not a kid walking home. And if I hadn't shown up, I don't know what would have happened. The room was silent. She continued, I've worked in law enforcement for over 15 years. I know good officers. I know how hard their jobs can be, but I also know what happens when bias goes unchecked. We can't fix what we refuse to face. Malik watched as people nodded. Some even clapped softly. He had never seen his mother speak like that before, with calm fire, with purpose. It made him proud and a little emotional. After the meeting, people came up to thank her. Some shared their own stories, parents, neighbors, even a few officers. Malik stayed back, listening quietly. For the first time, he realized this wasn't just about him. It was about something much bigger. That night, when they got home, Malik said, You were amazing out there. Denise smiled, a bit embarrassed. I just told the truth. He nodded. Yeah, but sometimes that's the hardest thing. She looked at him thoughtfully. You know, you could speak too if you ever wanted. People listen when stories come from someone real. He shook his head quickly. I don't think I could. That's okay, she said gently. You already lived it. That's enough. As the week went on, life began to settle again, at least a little. The attention started to fade. Fewer cars slowed down in front of their house. The messages became fewer each day. One evening, Malik was sitting on the porch when his mother joined him. The sun was setting, painting the sky in orange and purple. For a while, they just sat there, listening to the quiet sounds of the neighborhood. Denise finally said, You know, when I first joined the Bureau, I thought justice was about rules and laws. But it's more than that. It's about people, about seeing them, listening to them. Malik looked at her. You think things will change? She smiled softly. They already have a little. You changed them. He laughed quietly. I didn't do anything. You existed, she said simply. And sometimes that's enough to make the world pay attention. The wind rustled the trees, and for the first time in days, Malik felt something like peace. He didn't know what would come next, what the investigation would find, what people would say. But for that moment, sitting next to his mother, he felt safe. He looked up at the fading sky and thought about how quickly everything could shift, how one moment of fear had turned into a wave of voices demanding better. And somewhere deep inside, he began to believe that maybe, just maybe, things could get better after all. A few weeks had passed since that day when everything changed. The world outside had quieted, but inside the house, life still felt a little different. The air was lighter, but the memories still lingered like shadows that refused to fade completely. Malik had gone back to his routine, school, basketball, homework, but something inside him had shifted. He noticed things more now. The way people looked at him, the way his teachers spoke to him differently. Even his friends treated him with a new kind of caution, as if they weren't sure what to say. Some asked questions, trying to be kind. Others avoided the topic altogether. Malik didn't blame them. He didn't always have the right words either. One morning, as he walked to school, he noticed the same corner where everything had happened. The street was calm again. The store window reflected the sunlight, and the pavement looked the same as always. but to him it was a place that carried a story. He stopped for a second, watching a group of kids laughing as they passed by. He smiled faintly, then kept walking. At school, his teacher handed him a flyer for an essay contest. The topic was Voices for Change. Malik almost ignored it, but something about those words made him pause. He folded the paper and put it in his bag. That afternoon, when he got home, his mother was on the phone again. She was speaking calmly but firmly, the way she always did when she was handling something serious. Malik didn't interrupt. He sat on the couch, pulled out his notebook, and looked at the flyer again. The words seemed to echo in his mind, Voices for Change. That night, after dinner, he finally started writing. He didn't try to make it sound fancy. He just wrote what he felt. He wrote about fear, confusion, and how a simple walk home had turned into a moment that changed everything. He wrote about his mother's courage and about the silence that followed. He wrote about how it felt to be seen for the wrong reasons, and how that feeling didn't disappear even when the world moved on. When he finished, he read it out loud softly to himself. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. He didn't tell his mother about it right away. He just slipped the essay into his bag and turned in the entry the next morning. A few days later, Malik came home to find his mother sitting at the dining table reading a printed email. She looked up when he walked in, her eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and pride. "Did you write this?" she asked, holding up the pages. He froze for a second. "Oh, yeah, I guess." "This is beautiful," she said, her voice soft. "They sent it to me because you're a finalist." Malik blinked. "Wait, really?" She nodded. "They're inviting you to read it at the community center next weekend." His heart started to pound. "In front of people?" "Yes," she said with a gentle smile. "Only if you want to." He hesitated, then shrugged. "Maybe." All week he thought about it. Part of him wanted to say no. He wasn't used to speaking in front of crowds. But another part of him remembered what his mother had said before, how sometimes just being real was enough to make people listen. The day of the event came quickly. The community center was filled with families, students, teachers, and local leaders. There were banners with messages about unity and understanding. Malik sat in the front row holding his folded paper tightly. His palms were sweaty, but he tried to steady his breathing. When his name was called, he stood up slowly and walked to the stage. The lights felt too bright, the room too quiet. He looked out and saw his mother in the front, watching him with calm, proud eyes. That gave him courage. He began to read. His voice was shaky at first, but soon it found rhythm. He spoke about how a single moment could make someone see the world differently. He spoke about how fear could live quietly in people's hearts and how it only fades when others choose to listen. He didn't blame anyone. He didn't use anger. He spoke with honesty and calm. When he finished, the room was silent for a long second, then filled with applause. Malik looked up and saw his mother smiling through tears. Afterward, people came up to shake his hand to thank him for sharing. Some said his story opened their eyes. Others said they saw their own sons in him. Malik didn't know what to say to all of them, but he smiled and thanked them quietly. Later that evening, when they got home, Malik sat on the porch again while his mother brought out 2 cups of tea. They sat together under the fading light, the air cool and peaceful. "I'm proud of you," she said softly. He looked down, embarrassed but smiling. "Thanks, I was nervous." "You didn't sound nervous," she said. "You sounded strong." He looked out toward the street. "Do you think it made a difference?" She thought for a moment before answering. "Maybe not for everyone, but for someone out there it did. That's how change works, one person at a time." Malik nodded slowly. "I think I get that now." The next morning, a small article appeared in the local paper about the essay contest. It included a few lines from his speech. People at school congratulated him again, but this time it felt different. It wasn't about the video or the news. It was about his words. In the following weeks, things started to feel more normal again. Denise went back to work full-time, though she kept close contact with the local police department about policy changes they were starting to implement. Malik focused on his studies and basketball, but he also joined a student group that talked about community issues. One afternoon, as the group was planning their next project, Malik suggested organizing a workshop for younger students about how to interact safely with police, but also how to speak up respectfully when they feel mistreated. The group liked the idea immediately. When he told his mother later that evening, she smiled. You're doing something good with what happened, she said. He shrugged. Just trying to make it count. A few days later, they attended a city event where the police chief publicly announced a new partnership with the community to build trust. Malik and Denise sat in the audience quietly listening. The chief even mentioned her name and called her a voice for accountability. After the event, one of the officers approached Malik and said, "Hey, I saw your speech online. You spoke well. We need more young people like you out there." Malik didn't know what to say, but he nodded politely. "Thanks," he said. As they drove home, Denise said softly, "You handled that well." He smiled faintly. "I'm learning from the best." That night, as the house grew quiet, Malik sat by his window looking out at the same street where everything had begun. The lights glowed softly, the neighborhood calm and familiar again. He thought about how different he felt, how much had changed in just a few weeks. He picked up his notebook and wrote a few lines. Not for an essay this time, just for himself. He wrote about strength, about patience, about how courage sometimes means simply showing up. Downstairs, his mother turned off the last light and called, "Good night." "Good night, Mom," he replied, smiling. He looked out the window one last time before closing it. The night was quiet, peaceful, and for the first time since that afternoon, he didn't feel afraid of walking those streets again. He knew the world wasn't perfect. He knew that things like what happened to him still happened to others. But he also knew that stories could change hearts, and sometimes, that's where change truly begins. As he drifted off to sleep, he thought about the words his mother had said that night on the porch. How justice wasn't just about rules, but about people. And he decided, right then, that he wanted to be one of those people who made the world a little fairer, a little safer, a little kinder. Outside, the wind rustled the trees softly, like a whisper of promise. The world kept turning, and Malik, though still just a teenager, felt ready to face whatever came next, with courage, hope, and the quiet strength his mother had always taught him to hold close.